Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We had a few technical issues to resolve, which Kevin has done as he always does. This is the Thursday, May 9th, 2024 Early Learning Board meeting. And as we have done with all of our meetings, we'll begin the meeting sharing the mission, and I'm going to have the privilege of doing that today. The Early Learning Board mission is to support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the EOEL for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry. We ask that members keep that mission in mind as we have conversation, discussion, and take any action for today's meeting. This is the first meeting of the newly appointed board. We want to welcome each and every one of the new voting members today, and we will ask them to introduce themselves and also ask the non-voting members who would continue on the board to introduce themselves as well. So I'm going to begin by doing the roll call first to ensure that we have a quorum. Alana Bauman.
Aloha.
Thank you. Callie Burgess.
Hi.
Thank you. Cheryl Kudiyama.
Here.
That pronounced correctly? Thank you. Salma Gandhi.
Hi.
Thank you. Lindsay Heathcock.
Here.
Thank you. Joni Onishi.
Sorry, aloha.
Aloha. Stephanie Shipton.
Here.
Elaine Yamashita.
I made it, yes, here. Did you hear me?
Elaine
Could
did it.
you- Could you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're here, yes?
Okay, yes, I made it.
Great, great, thank you. We do have a quorum for today's meeting. And just as a reminder for new members, the meeting is recorded. The chair needs to announce the names of participating members. The quorum of members participating must be visible and audible. The quorum for our board, the size it is at the moment, is 5. The private chat comment featured in the Zoom has been turned off. All comments will be public, and any voting we do will be conducted by roll call. And this is in order to meet the obligations of the hybrid version of the meeting. Let's do the non-voting members. Dana Luca.
Here.
Thank you. Rochelle Mahoy.
Here.
Thank you. Bob Peters is here. Napua. Napua is going to be late. Steve Schatz. Here. Thank you, Steve. Matt Shim.
Here.
All right. I'd like to go back around to each of the members and ask you if you would share, first of all, the seat you're occupying on the board at the moment, and then a little bit about yourselves. Not a lengthy bio for this portion of the meeting, and a little bit about your interest in the Early Learning Board, what attracted you to become a member. So I'm going to go in the alphabetical order that I called the roll, so you'll know when your turn is coming up. Let's begin with Alana Bauman. Alana?
Hi, everybody. A lot of familiar faces on the Zoom. My name is Alana Bauman. I'm currently the Early Childhood Education System Coordinator at Kauai Planning and Action Alliance. Quick bio, born and raised on Kauai, came back home, have been working within the early learning sector for about 2 years now, and really excited to serve on the board in this capacity. To represent some of the voices on Kauai and support the well-being and academic future for our youngest Keiki. So thank you for allowing me to be here.
Welcome, Alana. Kelly.
Aloha kako, Kauai Burgess, recent retiree at Kamehameha, from Kamehameha Schools, at which I served as the Director of Government Relations. And so within my capacity there, I advocated very hard for Act 46 for every child to have access to early learning in Hawaii. And was it 257? The number is, once I left work, I stopped thinking about all the details. It's 257, right? Act 257, or pushed hard for that as well in 2022. And so my interest in being on the board is to, I'd like to kokua and however I can to ensure the rollout or implementation, I should say, of both Act 46 and the use of Act 257, which is stunt. But yeah, so that's why I'm here.
Okay. And what seat do you hold on the board?
Oh, I'm sorry, an at-large.
Okay. Thank you. Cheryl.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cheryl Kuriamont. I am the preschool director of Keiki Care Center of Hawaii. Going on almost 17 school years. I still remember the very first day, and long story short, I'm here today because getting to know the families, the children, the parents, I see the struggles that they've endured, even from 17 years ago to today. It's the same. In fact, I think it's much harder today. I see the struggles of staff. Of course, I take good care of them, but in general, I know that there's so much more that we could do for our teachers, for our preschool teachers specifically. I don't think that they garner the respect or the same respect as the upper level teachers. I think we have to change that, consensus. But yeah, I just feel that there's so much more that we can do. I think about only 50% of children attend preschool. Many still think that we're a daycare, not a preschool. And I think that's step one. We have to change or just educate those, even in the highest of offices, that, preschool education is just so important. More so today. In other countries, they see this for decades and decades. Other countries, other governments highly invest in early childhood education. And long story short, it equates to less crime, less homelessness, etc. in the future. So if we can do this in Hawaii, be an example for the nation, I think that would be awesome. Long story short.
And I don't know if I missed it. Did you say what seat you hold?
Oh, no, I didn't. I apologize. I don't remember. I think.
Just city and county, but if I remember correctly. Okay, thank you. Soma.
Aloha, my name is Solma Gandhi. I'm currently with the Stupsky Foundation, a private philanthropic foundation. I have worked in health, human services, child abuse and neglect, domestic violence, and education, both in the nonprofit and government for over 25 years. I've been on Hawaii Island for that length of time. And my motivators, my greatest teachers and motivators are my twin 17-year-old young men who were born and raised in a rural, remote area. And so I am motivated and encouraged to try to support our young people and our families as much as possible for our communities across the state. And I'm in an at-large seat.
Thank you, Soma. I was mistaken. You are in an at-large seat.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Soma. Lindsay.
Hello, everyone. My name's Lindsay Heathcock, and I'm a pediatrician working at Kapiolani. I'm a sitting county member. I just had to look it up myself. And I first got interested in the board through Dr. Mari Uehara, who is on the board before me. And I think that it's a great opportunity to bring my knowledge and experience from what I see my patients going through with their young children and finding education opportunities and also monitoring their development over time. And then also I get to bring back to them the most up-to-date knowledge about what resources are available. And that's already been an exciting opportunity. And I'm eager to work with all of you and get to continue to observe and be a part of this wonderful board.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. And what seat do you hold?
City and county.
Sitting in Honolulu.
I think you're city and county, is that correct? Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
We keep
Yeah.
losing. Okay, we keep losing you. For some reason, you're freezing. On us, so keep working on that.
Oh.
Thank you and welcome. Joni?
Aloha, my name is Joni Onishi, and I am a retired Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs from Hawaii Community College. I'm representing Hawaii County, I believe, and my experiences have all been in higher education. However, I was always and have been a proponent for pre-K to college, workplace, just a seamless pathway. And at Hawaii Community College, we have an early childhood education program, as well as a child care center. So I had experiences, working with them. And like someone previously mentioned, that I think that these preschool teachers need to be, or staff need to be treated better. And for Hawaii Island, I'm really interested in helping to bring more access for, especially to the many remote areas that we have on this island. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni, and welcome. Stephanie?
Aloha, my name is Stephanie Shipton. I am a mom to a preschooler who is at preschool right now, and a toddler who is napping after a very busy Keikio Ka'aina filled morning. So I'd say first and foremost, that's what brings me to this work. Is it's personal. It's also professional. My background is in education policy and innovation and systems work. And my work in education began in a pre-K charter school classroom in Washington, D.C. And that is where I fell in love with working in education and working with education policy. So I'm excited to be here to work on such an important issue area, not just for me and my family, but for all of the families in the state, and to be able to play a small part in carrying forward the great work that's already started and moving it into the next iteration. So thank you.
Thank you. And what seat do you hold?
I've got a city and county seat.
Okay, thank you. Elaine?
Aloha, everyone. My video is not on. I'm in New Mexico, and I'm afraid I'll lose the connection. So anyway, I'm representing Maui County, and my background, I retired from UH Maui College as professor of early childhood education back in 2019. And before that, I was there for 26 years. And before that, I was a preschool director, teacher for 13 years. I've been very active in Hawaii AYC, both at Maui County level and state level. And with Christina, my friend Christina that I see, and with Bob, we're on the Act 259 task force way back in 07, 08. And I also served on the NAEYC governing board from 04 to 08. So I've had this really strong interest in policy and moving our field forward for decades, and really excited and want to honor my friend Kathy Murphy, who passed away almost 4 years ago, because she would be really happy to see that one of us is on the early learning board and can help, hopefully help all, with everyone's help, we move things forward. So mahalo.
Okay, thank you, Elaine, and welcome. Dana, Luca?
Hi, I'm Dana Luca from the Department of Human Services. I'm the Child Care Regulation Program Administrator, and I oversee the child care licensing and quality programs. And I've been in the child care field since 2004. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Rochelle?
Hi, I'm Rochelle Mahoy. I'm the complex area superintendent for Farrington, Kaiser, and Kalani complex area. I sit on the board as the superintendent's designee. Of my 25 schools, all of my elementary schools except for one has a preschool program. And I think I have 6 EOEL classrooms. And next year, we're adding another 5. While my doctorate is in K-12 administration, at the end of this year, I'll finish my P3 leadership certification. Thanks.
Thank you, Rochelle. Has Nupua joined us yet? Nupua? Steve, would you share a bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Stephen Schatz, I'm the Executive Director of Hawaii P20 Partnerships for Education, and I'm on this board as the designee of UH President Lasner. I've been in education since '94 as a 3rd grade teacher to start, and then an elementary principal and various other roles. And at P20, we do our best to coordinate the education pipeline from early ed all the way through the workforce. So this is right in our wheelhouse.
Thank you, Steve. Matt Shim?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Shim. I am Chief of the Family Health Service Division at the Hawaii State Department of Health. I serve as a designee for the Director of Health, Dr. Kenny Fink. Family Health Services Division, we provide all the public health programs for moms, babies, kids, and families. It includes our supplemental nutrition program, women, infant, children, our WIC program, our maternal child health branch, our children with special health needs branch, which includes our early intervention services, and a bunch of other public health programs. Prior to joining the Department of Health 8 years ago, I spent 20 years as a Air Force public health officer. I retired in 2016. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm Bob Peters. I am the retired head of Honolulu School and serve as the designee for the executive director of the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools. I have served as chair of this board since it became a board in 2017. And as Elaine mentioned, have been attached to this work since Act 259 in 2006, I believe, and watched the issues around the system and the expansion efforts grow during that period of time. I will remain on the board for one more meeting, and at that point, a new chair will have been selected, and a new designee will assume the seat for the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools. So thank you, everyone. We really are excited to see the new board members and have you join us. I'm sure there's a lot to absorb information-wise, and we'll do our best to share with you a bit and not overwhelm with too much information at one time. Before we get into the items listed on the agenda, I have one general announcement to make. We are deferring 3 items on the agenda following a complaint to the Office of Information Practices about item 5, which is the Executive Office on Early Learning Updates, related to the specificity about the bills included in the legislative wrap-up. OIP, which is the Office of Information Practices, reviewed the entire agenda and determined that also not sufficiently specific was what was going to be addressed in the public pre-K expansion and roadmap. So those 2 items from item 5 will be deferred to the next meeting. As for item 6, the Maui early childhood status, and item 8, member updates, which OIP considered to be too vague and offered insufficient information for public notice, and therefore should be deferred to the next meeting. In the agenda planning, we operated from the assumption that all 3 were sufficiently described for the information items, which they were, since we were not asking consideration for any action, nor was action being taken. OIP obviously views this a bit differently, so we will bring those items back for conversation at our next meeting in June. Okay, we will now get to the items on the agenda. The first item for is to review and approve the minutes of the April 11th, 2024 meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as distributed. May I have a motion?
This is Elaine. I move to accept the minutes as
Okay.
submitted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Elaine, I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? To note a couple of typos that need to be corrected. One is in the public in attendance. Jordana Ferrara's name is, the last name is Ferreira. That needs to be corrected. And then on page 4, I believe it is. Bullet number 2, you need to correct the spelling of Arikawa Cross. And the last bullet on the page, should the third line down toward the right-hand side, should read Dr. Lauren, Lauren Tedeschi. And we need to do one double check to ensure that the posted online minutes are the correct ones and have spelled the mayor's name correctly. So that those items need to be corrected, all basically typos.
Excuse me, Chair. Another typo, and I think it's Kaiulani Laeha's last name. I don't believe it's Laecha. And the C should be removed. That's the only spelling I saw. Thank you.
Okay, we'll check that. Any other comments about the minutes? Hearing none, we will vote to approve the April minutes with the amended edits suggested. Alana?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Selma?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Hi, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay.
Joni?
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
Elaine.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved with those recommended changes. And I do want to call everyone's attention to something that we didn't bring up when Kelly was introducing herself. While she is able to participate in the conversation, she remains on the stadium authority.
Yes.
At this point, and one can't serve on two boards or commissions simultaneously. So Kelly can participate in conversations, but will officially be able to vote when her term ends on the stadium authority, which is the end of June.
June 30th.
June 30th. Okay,
I color my everyone.
thank you. All right, let's move to item number 3, the governance subcommittee. Matt, I'll turn to you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks everybody for making some flexibility in the schedule for me. I am currently in hot, humid, and raining New Orleans for the National Rural Health Association Conference. I am the convener of the governance subcommittee, and I am here to provide information on the Early Learning Board chair nominations. So I'm going to put some information in the chat. So the person who's taking notes later on will have all these, and everybody will have access to the information. So nomination window opens today, May 9th, 2024, at this announcement. And nominations for the new chair will close at 4:30 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time on Friday, May 24th, 2024. Anyone who is interested in self-nominating or others who are interested in nominating someone else, please send those nominations via email to me at matthew.shim@doh.hawaii.gov. Please use a subject ELB chair nomination. So I can make sure it does not get lost in my inbox. How this will go is I will verify interest for all self-nominated candidates via email before the June 13th ELB meeting. Folks who nominate are self-nominated. That is your interest in the position. Get these next bullets in here.
I'm sorry, Matt, did you say that it closes on the 20th or or the 4th? I'm sorry.
4:30 p.m. on Friday, May 24th.
I mean 24. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, and then in the chat, I will submit names of candidates who self-nominate or accept nomination to our current chair, which is Bob Peters, who will organize a ballot for the June ELB meeting. During that meeting, I will email or text ballots to voting members present in person or virtual during the June meeting. During that meeting, the meeting will pause for about 5 minutes or so folks can vote, or voting members can complete their ballots and return to me via email or text. If you don't think you'll be able to receive or access email while during the meeting, if you send me your telephone number, I will be able to text you your ballot. Now, let me get one more. Okay, last two items. During the June meeting, I will tabulate the votes and announce the results during the June meeting. And should there be a tie, runoff for the top two candidates and nominees will be conducted at the next ELB plan meeting, which is July 11th, 2024. So does anyone have any questions or Any information that is not clear, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? I believe I mailed everyone a copy of the chair responsibilities, if I remember correctly, but if you wish to discuss further, I'm happy to respond to any inquiries about the chair's position. Any other comments or questions for Matt?
Okay, so voting members, if I do not hear from you with a phone number, I will assume I will use your the email that we have on file for you that Bob sends the information to. But if you have any questions, by all means, you can email me at the email I left in the chat.
Thank you, Matt.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. And I'm sorry, I did not ask Keiko or anyone to sit in for me. But I'll be dropping off. If there's any information that you'll need from or share with the director, please let me know.
Okay. Will do. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Bob. Welcome, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Item number 4 on the agenda is a presentation by Dr. Terry Locke from University of Hawaii, Manoa. And she is calling it Highlighting Innovation in Early Childhood Teacher Preparation in Hawaii. I heard Terry a month or so ago provide a presentation on some of the work that she's been doing through a grant and work around workforce, which is obviously one of the key issues that we need to be concerned about, and asked if she would be willing to come and share this information with you today to give you a sense of what's being worked on and how things are moving forward with the work that she has been doing. So Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you and welcome.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you, Bob, for inviting me, but I want to congratulate all of the new members for being on the board. Thank you in advance for all the hard work that you're going to be doing on behalf of our keiki and our families across our state. Can everyone hear me? Am I okay, Bob? Okay, great. I have a set of slides, and I believe I have about 20 minutes to go through these slides. And I just want to say that what Bob mentioned, actually, Bob, I've done a little bit different slides just to make it a little bit more complete. But yeah, thank you. So let me show you my slides, and then I'll walk you through this and describe what's been going on. Okay. Anyway, these slides will be available to you. It'll be part of the minutes, so you'll have access to it after this. I do have quite a bit of information on here. So, and we'll try to see if there'll be opportunities for questions at the end. Again, as Bob mentioned, I'm with UH Manoa College of Education. I run a project called the Hawaii Early Childhood Educator Excellence and Equity Project. And we are a system-wide project, got started in 2021. And we're at this place where we're really celebrating the last 3 years with a particular funding, and then want to tell you more about some funding and opportunities as we move forward. Yeah, so my title, Highlighting Innovations in Early Childhood Teacher Preparation in Hawaii. So the Transforming Early Childhood Education Preparation Programs and Compensation Financing Systems is really the title of the project I have been directing. I want to read this particular quote. I won't be reading other quotes too much, but kind of going through the slides quickly. But I do think this is such an important quote. Advancing the highest standards of educator quality and make them possible through equitable access to pre-service preparation and continued professional learning, coupled with professional compensation that reflects the transformational value of early childhood educators. So I've already heard that theme in the introduction, so I appreciate that. We appreciate that so much. So yeah, so my work is all around workforce and how to do this. So the Transforming the Early Education Teacher Preparation Program is through a multi-partner approach or innovation, and we have been funded for the last 3 years through this Early Educator Investment Collaborative, which is a hui of funders, folks like Gates Foundation and Buffett Foundation, Heisman Simon. And the focus of this particular grant has been really serving our diverse students and making sure that we're breaking down barriers. So these particular colleagues came from these other universities. So we're part of a hui of 8, a network of 8 universities that serve a variety of really diverse populations. In particular, there are at least 2 of these colleges that really focus on Native American indigenous populations. Others also serve other indigenous populations too. Now, I want to say that one of the things I want to emphasize is Hawaii, University of Hawaii is a model serving indigenous Native Hawaiian institution. That's something we're striving to do, and we've made some headways over the last number of years. So think about think about this network, and again, it's been a wonderful opportunity. I also want to, before I go on any further, I want to thank for us to get this support. We also had the support of matching funds from Hawaii, and that was through the Hawaii Community Foundation, Kamehameha Schools, as well as the Samuel and Mary Castle Foundation. So that's what was needed to actually for us to get these resources. So as I mentioned, it's really to look at both systemic and financial barriers that students face in pursuing early childhood education degrees. And so IHE are Institutes of Higher Education, and our partners. We've been doing that through this grant with each other. And this has been, as I mentioned, a multi-partner approach. So it's not just one campus. It's been both a variety of different early childhood education programs. As Joni mentioned, Hawaii Community College was one of it. All of our 4 community colleges that have ECE programs, number of community organizations, policymakers, leaders, others were also involved. You'll see that as I go through the slides. So our theory of improvement was that if you look in the center, and all of you have talked about, and our mission for the Early Learning Board is about our keiki and ohana, giving them ECE access and quality. Around that, this ecosystem, I want to start with the top. It's really around listening to our community voices and using voices, culture, voices, and resources. I'm sorry if you're hearing chickens crow in my background, the background of my, I apologize for that. I can't control the chickens. So then you'll see to the left and the right, research-based teacher preparation, ongoing professional development, and building the political will in our state to really support what we need for our children and families. And part of the political will is really the Early Learning Board and the governance in our state and the agencies that really surround our children and families, and making sure we have sustainable movement. Some of the challenges that we've been faced with that, is still in front of us, but we have made some headway with this grant, and hopefully more to come. But we do want to increase the number of qualified, diverse early educators in a way that we have a homegrown approach across our state, in every community, especially I know we have some challenges in our rural communities. The second is really qualified infant and toddler programs and infant toddler educators. I know we've been talking a lot about preschool, but I want to, emphasize that early childhood education is really birth through 8. And then our focus on our early learning board is birth through 5. Number 3 is really compensation, wage supplements. That's something we're really striving for. I'll talk more about that, but that's come up more and more. It's been there for decades, especially in our community-based programs that are licensed by Department of Human Services, both the licensed and regulated programs. And then we want to look at ways to really afford have affordable, accessible, high quality, competency-based early childhood education programs, early educator teacher preparation programs. I'll tell you more about that. The next one is about articulation and transfer agreements. It's something we're working on within the UH system. And finally, early educators want to continually improve program quality, but need guidance, support, and resources. So today I am going to really talk about celebrating the accomplishments, and it's going to be broken up into these categories. I'm not going to cover, I apologize. I'm not going to cover everything, but I'm just going to highlight some things. So I'm going to be sharing about implementing the Power to the Profession Unifying Framework, some of the work going on there, accelerating efforts to increase compensation, creating accessible career pathways, assuring student success, and laying a foundation for continuous quality improvement. Okay, sorry. Okay, the first is implementing the Power to the Profession Unified Framework. The Power to the Profession is a national movement that started before the pandemic, and many of us who were engaged with the consensus building around this. It was a national initiative, and it has a very audacious vision. Each and every child beginning at birth has the opportunity to benefit from high quality early childhood education delivered by an effective, diverse, equitable, well-prepared, and well-compensated workforce of ECE professionals working across all states and settings. And the emphasis on the Unified Framework is really looking at the Power to the Profession Task Force looked at other professionals and in other industries. And one in particular is nursing, and how nurses worked hard through a lot of years on really developing their profession. So the Unified Framework calls for significant investment, but also shared vision around compensation goals, supports qualifications, preparation, structures, and partners. It is a roadmap, and it centers the voices of our early childhood educators and their perspectives. It does prioritize investment in educators' preparation, support, and compensation. It is evidence-based, and now we're learning how the states are moving forward in following the Unified Framework. In the Unified Framework also, there is this idea about building an ecosystem. And so in our state, we have embarked on Advancing the Early Childhood Education Profession Initiative. So it utilizes the Unified Framework and as a roadmap, and that we're intentionally building that into our state. It is a partnership between my project at UH and the Hawaii Association for the Education of Young Children and Hawaii Careers with Young Children. And a number of you are members of that. Some of you are participating in the efforts. Want to thank you for that. Again, we're building an ecosystem as a way to using collaborative systems change approach. So you can see the bullets of all of the people as, organizations that are in this ecosystem. It has a phased-in implementation approach, so it honors the existing and future workforce. These are just statements within the Unified Framework I'm not going to read over all of them, but it begins with, we will not advocate for blah, blah, blah without this. So I'll just read a couple. We will not advocate for increased educational requirements without advocating for funding to support requisite supports and attendant compensation. Will not advocate for new regulations or requirements for early childhood educators without advocating for increased funding and capacity supports so that programs, institutions, and educators across all settings can implement them. So again, I won't read them all, but it is a way to say, as we build this, implement and follow this roadmap, we will need to continue to advocate for new and improved components, but also the resources that come with it and the appropriate benchmarks for that too. One of the things on the national level is several different documents. This one is called the NAYC Professional Knowledge and Competencies, or Professional Standards and Competencies for Early Childhood Educators. And it is a pathway for us to look at different levels of experience and expertise. So I'm going to be referring to this later on. On the bottom, if you see the bottom, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a Commission for the Professional Excellence of Early Childhood Education, and that is a commission that's been formed at the national level to support states moving forward on this effort. So one of the things we're doing locally, I have been working on across our campuses, the Ford Community College, College of Education, we've been working on adopting these professional standards and competency aligning our courses, field experiences. And then we also have been identifying our strengths and where we can improve, as well as how to differentiate our own curriculum for diverse students starting from different pathways. And we also participate in training on the NAYC Higher Education Accreditation System. Okay, now we're going to move on to the section called Accelerating Efforts to Increase Compensation. Many of you know we had commissioned the RAND Corporation to do a study that was really focused on the workforce working in DHS licensed childcare centers and regulated family childcare homes or programs. And this took place November 2021 to July 31, 2022. And it was published in October of 2022. It was led by a team from RAN, and we had a small team working closely with them on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, actually, to offer historical and contextual guidance. And it was led by Dr. Lynn Carroll Lee, who's very renowned in her work as an economist in this field. So the final report came out. It describes the landscape. There's lots of quotes within that report. And I urge all of the new members, if you haven't seen the report yet, to really read that. And you can find out from me where to get it. The other is the findings also looked at what are policy and financing options, and then created a high-level roadmap to advance these options. So this is just a photo of the high-level roadmap, and it goes into two phases. Phase one, stabilizing the ECE workforce, which we're in, and then phase two, which is strengthening and sustaining the ECE workforce. There is a complementary phase that goes across both. And so you'll see what those look like. And I know we've been working on facilities investment. There's also really, we need to put more investments into how we collect data. I know you folks have talked about that sometime, but let me just say that in the first phase, during the pandemic, and even now, we're still losing staff in community-based programs. And so we really need to work on stabilizing our workforce. And there's been, we've done wage supplements for the last 3 legislative sessions, but we have not gotten that passed yet. So that's something I think we all have to work towards. Benefits, we want to consider looking at working conditions, piloting a salary scale, apprenticeships. I'll be talking a little bit about apprenticeships today and what's happening with, and let me just turn to the next thing. So after that report came out, I convened, my team and I convened a compensation design team to establish a process to further analyze the policies and then build awareness among early educators and stakeholders about these policy options. So we've written them into living documents because they're ever changing, but they are being used. In fact, you know, as we talked about the wage supplements this past year and the bill, HB 1964, some of the work that we're doing, as well as the RAND study, some information was helpful to that bill. Okay, and then we've also been partnering closely with Hawaii Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance to support these legislative priorities. And one of the biggest costs, as you already know, is the cost of personnel. So if we, and to ensure we can get to competitive pay and benefits, ultimately, public funding is key for closing the gap. Okay, the next section is creating accessible career pathways. I want to tell you a story about Cheryl Ann. Cheryl Ann Yamaguchi has been a family child care provider, and she got started actually really interested in family child care when she was a teenager. So she's been going to school off and on, and she was able to work slowly at taking courses at Honolulu Community College. She completed a portfolio-based assessment, which is a type of prior learning credit. And then she was able to complete her practicum, and she's graduating this semester with her associates, along with her son, who's graduating from high school. So we're really proud of Cheryl, and we will, she'll be featured on a film clip that I'm going to be part of, that we're going to be doing some filming around some of the stories that came out of this project. Okay. And Keikioka Aina, many of you know Mel Vega and the work they've been doing, and Mel was on the early learning board. So Keikioka Aina registered apprenticeship program, got started with some funding from our project. And now it is, you know, we've had our first apprentices take courses this semester at HANCC. So it's aligned with the NAYC professional standards and competency. The training and instruction comes from the community colleges. We're starting off first with HANCC, but they can articulate with the rest of the community colleges, leads to an associate degree, and you need a mentor. Each apprentice has a mentor, and then there's credit for on-the-job learning. So we can tell you more about that. And I think a group just came back, or might still be at a particular national conference. So also, we've been working on a statewide bachelor's in education in ECE birth through 8 through College of Ed with the community colleges. It's not quite ready because it's going through approval process right now. It'll be available across the state. It'll be online primarily. It'll be articulated, be cohorted. Okay, then I want to move on to assuring student success. So we've had this student ambassador program. We started off at the community colleges. So you can see at HANCC, Hawaii Community College, Maui College, and Kauai Community College. And a student ambassador is a part-time student that's actually been identified by the ECE faculty. And they work part-time, and they work alongside of our faculty or program coordinator representing and promoting the ECE program. They're ambassadors to our program. And so these photos come from actually our Kauai Community College, from Toni Fujimoto, and her student ambassador is Leanne. Anyway, we'll see some photos here. Peer support. So really connecting with students. After the pandemic, it was really hard to engage with students again. So it took some time. And so the student ambassador provides this personalized outreach, connecting students with various services. And then there's some recruitment efforts that was at their parent-child fair, as well as, you know, they were able to interact with the community and people who were interested in knowing more about the ECE program. And then it's improved, Liana, this is Liana, she's our student ambassador, and it's improved communication across the board too. So we're continuing that program. It got started under our project and continuing going forward. One of the biggest barriers has been attending college. So it's a cost thing. And so I know that, you know, our project is not responsible for the Hawaii ECE tuition stipend program. That really comes out of the graduate program in our College of Ed, working alongside with Executive Office on Early Learning. And want to also thank Sammy and Mary Castle Foundation because they got it started before we were able to get some state funds. So one of the things is that's really helping, and we just got it started. So now we're really seeing some of the numbers, and want to continue. What my project was able to do was help get the word out, help to coordinate it between the campuses. And now we're coordinating it across the campuses, especially with all the advisors on each campus and the cashier's offices. Okay, laying the foundation is the final piece I want to share. Oops, sorry. Oh. Laying the foundation for our continuous quality improvement system. We started it with my project, but we're continuing it with preschool development funds. And so we know through improvement science that drivers of change are those closest to the work. And so it's important to think about continuous quality improvement as something that is driven by the workforce. And that's built on relationships, mutual respect, looking at data, coming together, building supports. And so as CQI, we believe a CQI needs to be a culture of continual learning and distributive leadership. And so you see some quotes here, comes from various authors that we've been and researchers. And you can see more about that. But what I want to say that we're starting to take some steps for statewide CQI. In our PDG grant, the ECE3 project and the Department of Human Services are responsible for the development of the foundational components of the CQI system. And we're working closely with our HCYC work groups to develop these foundational documents, get feedback from early educators. And then we've also been working with Department of Health, have met with Department of Health, Jeremy Heyer, who is responsible for coordinating the CQI system for the home visiting programs in our state. So just want to share that with you. I want to end by saying that these strategies we've accomplished, but we're going to continue a number of them through our PDG funds and with other local private funders. So these are just, you know, more, but continuing on. So we're not stopping. I think we're making good headway at this point. Okay. And if you have questions, want to know more, you can ask me directly. I have my email address there. Thank you so much for your attention. And again, mahalo to everybody who's helped us work on this project.
And Terry, you're available for questions, right?
Yes, I am.
Presentation, I'm sorry, I missed it. If we're going to be able to get a copy.
Yeah, you did say the presentation would be available, correct, Terry?
Yes, the presentation will be part of the public documents that go out according to Kevin, gets posted with the minutes. So you'll be able to see those presentations, and I'm not sure when that happens, but yes, and you might want to go over it and, you know, ask me questions later. You could certainly do that. Mahalo. That's a good question.
Terry, I think one of the questions that certainly pops into my head, and maybe others share it, has to do with, there's been a lot of work going on since you received the grant, and a lot of effort to create greater enthusiasm around joining the early learning community. And are there any measures we have of how it's going? Are we attracting more and recruiting more to the field? Are we seeing more graduates coming out? Yeah, I guess impact is what I'm asking about at this point, or is it premature for that?
Well, you know, the financial aid part of it, you know, the tuition stipend, which we had already identified as being such a barrier, is making a huge difference. I didn't show a data number, but for instance, we just started rolling that out last summer. And we already see, and I think UCO has probably provided some updates about that, but we already see higher numbers of people coming into the field at the community college level. And that we're paying for a lot of our, that, you know, folks at Manoa students too often need financial assistance. So it's helping across the state in our UH system. And this goes also to UH Hilo. That funding is for anybody who's working in you know, taking courses in ECE. There is a give back to it. I think it's a 2-year work commitment for that one. But yeah, we are already seeing definite changes in that. And as far as the other data, I think we're beginning to get some really good responses. Well, starting to get some responses from the field about the impact of higher education in their work. And yeah, so.
Anyone else have any questions for Terry? Or comments?
Bob, I have a question building on yours. Terry, I really appreciated this whole presentation. I found it incredibly helpful. And I was particularly interested in the Power to the Profession Unifying Framework and some of the orientation to collaborative systems change. And I'm curious, what are the goals or targets, if any, that you have to look at to assess the way that the system is shifting and changing?
Well, I think one of the, so thanks, Stephanie, for that question. The unified framework is really a compensation first approach. So there are a number of states that have making headways in the compensation and making, so there are DC is one of the, they've done some early work around that. I feel that I think Vermont last year got a lot of money through their state, and they've been working hard at, they were one of the early adopters to the unified framework. So apprenticeship models are coming out. That's becoming more and more popular, and we're seeing that interest in our state too. So, and that's, you know, that's a combination of funding from the Department of Labor and other places. So yeah, we, you know, at some other point, if you want me to come and talk about what states are moving forward, that would be, you know, I'd love to do that. And we are trying to keep up with everybody else.
Anyone else have a question for Terry before we move on? If not, thank you, Terry, for sharing the status of this project, which we know is a really critical one in terms of its impact on the expansion in particular, and having and not only the expansion, but just providing those who are currently offering services for young children the staffing that they need in order to maintain the enrollment that they currently have or expand. That this is a critical area of work that needs to be done. So I think we will continue to be vitally interested in the progress of your efforts as time goes on. And seeking more ways to look at how do we broaden pathways in particular to attract more people and make it possible to entice people to get in the field and then stay. So,
Mahalo,
Thank you.
Bob. Mahalo, everyone.
thank you. Item number 5 is the item I referenced earlier that we have to defer the 2 items on the legislative session wrap up and the public pre-K expansion roadmap. However, we can ask Yuko if she in a position to introduce staff, or if that's something she would prefer to defer as well. Yuko?
Hi, yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you and welcome to your first official cohesive early learning board meeting. And so we will introduce our staff and then I'll do a brief introduction of myself, Chair Peters, and then we can go on to the next agenda item if that's okay. Okay, so EOEL folks, what I did was I pulled up how everybody is listed on our website, and I'll just call you out that way so we know who can come next. So we'll have Dolores, then Tara, and then Mikako. Okay, maybe Dolores is not able to make it. How about Tara, then Mikako, and then Malia?
You just want a brief introduction? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm Tara Castrovinci. I'm the communication specialist. And I started at EOEL. I'm fairly new. I started last October. So.
Hi, my name is Mikako Deguchi, institutional analyst for the EOEL. Nice to meet you all. I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, after Malia, if she jumps back on later, we'll have Tiffany, then Kevin, then Ku'ule.
Tiffany had to jump off, sorry.
How about Kevin, then Ku'ule, then Alohi?
Yes, my name is Kevin Kawasawa and I'm the tech person for EOEL.
He's our lifesaver.
I'm Ku'ule Kaluhi Okalani. I'm the educational specialist with the public pre-K program. And I've been with EOEL for, I believe, 4 years now.
Aloha kako. My name is Alohilani Mayava Shigeta. You can call me Alohi. I'm a program specialist. I am the main support for our early childhood state plan and the preschool development renewal grant Birth to 5. I've been with the office since 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Alohi. Then we'll have Ian, Yvette, and Stephanie.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Okamoto, and I am the Workforce Development Specialist. And actually, I am zooming in from Sacramento. As Dr. Locke had mentioned, there is a national conference that's been going on this past week regarding registered apprenticeships. And actually, Yuko and I are both here. Welcome.
Did you say Yvette? Next. Sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm Yvette Paglinawan. I'm one of the early learning state office teachers. And my other colleagues who are not here are Dolores, Malia, and Tiffany. Tiffany was here for a little bit, but she had to step out. We're state office teachers, and we work directly with the classroom teachers in public pre-K programs. I've been with EOEL. I was a pre-K teacher with EOEL since 2014 and then moved into this position in 2020.
Aloha, I'm Stephanie Osserman Stephanie Osserman Tim Singh. I'm the ASA and I'm the contract specialist, and I've been with EOEL since 2022. Aloha.
Hi, thank you. Then we'll have Lane and Kelly if she might be on.
I'm Lane Tsuchiyama, an institutional analyst with the Executive Office on Early Learning. I started with the Early Learning Board and then shifted over to the EOEL in 2022.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Benoit. I'm the Business Management Officer for the Executive Office on Early Learning. I'm relatively new to the office as well. I started in November of last year. So welcome everyone to the board.
Thank you. And I just wanted to really highlight our team. I think we have a really diverse and unique team that have experiences from community-based sector, preschool, EOEL public preschool. We have somebody who used to be a dentist. We've got people who speak Filipino and Japanese and Hawaiian on our team. We have somebody who's been a part of other workforce development efforts. And we also have somebody who was previously connected to a small business sector. So we've got a lot of diverse skills in our office. And I think it's really neat because it brings a lot of unique perspectives to our office. And then I just wanted to introduce myself quickly. I don't know everybody personally. I have met one-on-one with Stephanie and Sulma because they joined the board a little earlier, but for all other board members, I will be reaching out to you so that I can set up a one-on-one with you, just so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. And you can feel free to ask me whatever questions you might want to know more about in EOEL. But professionally, I guess my academic side, I graduated from Kamehameha schools. I also graduated from University of Hawaii at Manoa, where I earned my bachelor's degree in education. My emphasis was in family resources. And the only reason why I was able to get through college was through grants and scholarships. My pre-service hours was in the Kalama'oke Kaiaulu cohort on the Waianae Coast. And I joined the Department of Education in 2000 as a first grade teacher at Ka'ala Elementary School. I later went on to earn my master's degree in educational foundations, the educational leadership in the Asia Pacific region. And after that, I moved in to become a school renewal specialist in the Lelehua Mililani Wailua complex area. After that, I went and I entered the Certification Institute for School Leaders cohort, and I became a vice principal and a principal at a military impacted school. And at that school, it was really neat because we were able to establish the first inclusive Head Start classroom with dual enrollment in the Central District. We also led a concerted effort for inclusive practices for students with special needs. And as we were emerging from the pandemic, we also created something called the Pineapple Academy, which was a 100% distance learning opportunity for students and families in 14 elementary schools in our complex area. And we kind of pulled them all together and we held it at our school to lighten the load of other schools, but also because we had really excellent people who are at our school who were willing and able to support everybody in that effort. And then some things that I shared about myself personally and why I chose to express my interest in this position. So I moved into EOEL in 2022, so just 2 years ago. And when I learned about the opportunity, I was really reflecting because I was not trying to leave my position prior. The opportunity presented itself and I had to really think hard about what could be my relationship to this work. And the more I thought about it, I realized I am probably very much alike a lot of the families that our office serves to help. So, for example, my mother was adopted. My father did not complete high school and he immigrated in from Japan. So he's not an English as a first language speaker. I was raised in a multilingual, multi-generational home. I was one of 5 children. And our family actually currently supports individuals who have mental health issues, incarceration, teen pregnancy. I personally have a blended family. I've got 4 children, but together we have 7. We've got 5 grandchildren. My tumultuous life prior had domestic violence, single parent, and I received MedQuest, Patch, childcare connections, subsidies and grants. And my youngest child also had hydrocephalus and she went through early intervention. And so I think that I have a unique personal experience, like fortunately or unfortunately, like checking off many boxes of challenges that different families face. But I think what I'm most excited about this work is to let people know that your current circumstances do not have to be your long-term reality. And I think trying to figure out how do we bridge those pieces and put it together so that people can thrive in the midst of whatever circumstances they might be going through. And that's why I chose to apply into this position. So this is our team. I think we have a really awesome team. We are going to be adding to our team because we earned additional positions at the last biennium. And so we're currently in the process of doing many interviews and bringing people on. So we're really excited to add more role-specific expertise, but also looking for and inviting people who have other types of experiences that can help us broaden the lens of what I call normal people, like the general public, people who are not necessarily connected to the ECE field, so that we can really take their perspectives into consideration as we lift our work. So thank you very much, Chair Peters.
Thank you, Yuko. And thank you to the staff for taking time to come and introduce yourself. We did want to give everybody a flavor on the new board of the people you're going to be working with, and some introduction to them. And Yuko will come back and join us shortly to talk a bit more about the office and the organization and the priorities of the office as well. Item number 6 is one of those that we need to defer to the next meeting, the Maui Early Childhood Status Updates, as mentioned earlier. Item 7 is an opportunity for any public comment. A reminder that there's a 2-minute time limit per speaker, and public comments have to be related to items included on the agenda. So the floor is now open for anyone in the public community joining our meeting who would like to have an opportunity to speak. Letting us know in the chat is the best way that we can invite you to have this opportunity. Community who wishes to speak? I don't see anybody appearing in the chat, so we will move on. Just for new board members' information, oftentimes we have 2 opportunities for the public to comment during meetings. One for the beginning and one at the end. We were assuming we might not have enough time for both of those today, given the nature of the agenda. So we, in this meeting, had only one. Public comments are all supposed to be related to items included on the agenda. Item number 8 is another that we will defer, the member updates, which has generally in the past been an opportunities for members, particularly when we were a constituent representative, stakeholder representative group, to share about what was happening within their groups and make announcements around information that they may have, they wish the rest of the board to know, given the breadth of those who were invited to be board members at that time. So the last section before we close out this meeting is an opportunity for Yuko and me to give a really broad-based view of who we are in essence. And Yuko will offer some information about not only the mission, but the responsibilities in statute for EOEL, the organization, and highlight some of the strategic priorities. And then I'll try to do a similar overview for the Early Learning Board. And it is not going to be in depth. I want you to know that, simply because there's too much information. And some of these issues probably you'll want to identify to dig into more deeply. Part of what I will do at the end, what I'm going to share with you with Kevin's help, is walk you through what's available for resources so that you can see what you can tap into on the websites that can help you either fill in gaps, add information, or things you want to revisit so that you just have a better sense of how things will function. We have tried to create a transition website. That's really what this is about. You'll probably be better able to let us know how successful you are as we move forward. So Yuko, I'm going to turn it over to you first to address the Executive Office on Early Learning and its nature.
Sure. Let me just get this straight. So this is just a general board orientation on EOEL's mission, responsibilities, organization, and strategic priorities. Oh, not that. Wrong share, sorry. Here we go. When you think about EOEL, there's chapter 302L that's about early learning. And in here is 302L2 that talks about the early learning system. And it says that this is the establishment of the early learning system that's looking at a spectrum of high quality early learning throughout the state from prenatal to kindergarten, as Dr. Terry Locke shared, with priority going to underserved or at-risk children. And that it should be developed and administered by the Executive Office on Early Learning to the extent permissible by law. Linked to this are the roles and the responsibilities of the director of the Executive Office on Early Learning. There's a bunch of things here, but basically serving as a principal officer in state government responsible for performance development control programs, policies, and activities under the jurisdiction of the office from prenatal to kinder. Supervising our subordinates or our team, administering funds, assessing policies and practices of other agencies that impact early learning, and conducting advocacy efforts for early learning, advising agencies on new legislation, programs, and policy initiatives relating to early learning, employing our staff, and looking at contracts and services to administer this work. So basically, we have two main functions. One is the coordination of the early childhood system, and the other part is administering the public pre-kindergarten program. One other part that we hold in our office is the Head Start State Collaboration Director. And so EOEL's mission is this, that we work to establish a system that ensures a solid foundation of early childhood development and learning for all of Hawaii's children, and meaningful engagement and supports for their families, and a stable, competent, supported workforce. And our vision is that every child in Hawaii has access to high quality early childhood development and learning experiences, which lay the foundation for lifelong well-being. These are the guiding principles of our office, that we place young children and their families at the heart of our decision-making. We build upon existing momentum, build a strong framework, focus on quality while increasing access, plan together for a better tomorrow, and work with a mindset of growth and innovation. And so this is a detailed org chart of EOEL. You can see it later. All of this is in the public documents, but right here on the right-hand side is basically the broader office positions. And then when you look over here to this side, this is the part that is being built and developed for the EOEL public pre-K program. When I came into the position, we had 37 EOEL public pre-K classrooms. And at the start of this next school year, we will have 92. And so we have to build out our team. And so we're in the process of putting all of these pieces in place. When you think about the system part of it, this right here are all the early care and education and learning opportunities in Hawaii and how they're funded. So some of the colors, you can't really see the gradation, but it blends between private and federal and maybe some federal to state. And you can see all of the options that are available to families in Hawaii. So EOEL only directly controls these top two on the far right side. The EOEL public pre-K program, and the second one that used to be called Pre-Plus contracts, but through this last latest session and up for consideration by the governor is to change it to be called Early Learning contracts instead of Pre-Plus contracts, which will enable EOEL to take that Pre-Plus contract model off into other public buildings. And so this is where EOEL lies within our office. And this is everything else that EOEL watches and takes a pulse of and tries to see how we can help to improve what's already happening out there in the system. And so the other portion of our plan is our EOEL public pre-K sites. And so when you look at this, that org chart includes the state superintendent, his leadership team, complex area superintendents, principals, and all the way down to teachers, office staff, and educational assistants. And so our team also works with all of these folks at a district, state district, and school level view. This is our budget, just so that you can have a high view of EOEL budget. It's public. This is from at the end of 2023. And you'll see at the very beginning of this upcoming school year, we will have 223 positions in EOEL with at this time, it's one temporary. It's the Head Start State Collaboration Director. It's considered temporary because it's a renewable grant. And most of these positions are held down at the school level, supporting our public pre-K classrooms. And so when we look at our strategic priorities, I just wanted to do a brief recap of what's happened since 2022 and how it leads us to our present and what we're going to be doing next. So in 2022, the ELB drafted the roadmap. We had a budget of $7,000 at that time. The School Facilities Authorities was brought in, that gave $200 million. We got Act 257, that was also helped to do the renovations of all of our classrooms in conjunction with Ready Keiki. And then EOEL was awarded, and not EOEL, Hawaii P20 and EOEL are co-leads, but also you'll see the team who's a part of our preschool development grant. In 2023, we had an increase in appropriation for our schools. We added more positions. We're going to open up 55 more. We will have opened up 55 more by the start of this next school year. And we also got $600,000. So the 60 is for administrative support, but $600,000 to support early childhood educators. And so if you know of anybody who's interested in becoming an early childhood educator, let them know that we have money available for them. Then we also had the Child Care Accreditation Program in Department of Human Services, extending the deadline for preschool open doors for their accreditation. We also have the new composition of our board. And then also previously the preschool open doors, which is only available to 4-year-olds, and EOEL, which is previously only available to 4-year-olds, are now able to accept 3- and 4-year-olds. And so when we think about the whole early learning system, these are what I would call like the big buckets of how we kind of look at things. So early learning, special needs, early intervention, family support, health, mental health, and nutrition. And so here are what we're going to be working on. Of course, the big initiative, Ready Keiki. Really grateful for all of the partners. Oops, let me go here first. All of the partners who make this work possible. It's been phenomenal to be a part of, to see everybody thinking and trying. And I think just, collectively being creative. And I really appreciate that we have this space to think broadly about our work and without feeling like it has to be perfect right out the gate. And so, oops, let me go back. So this is the preschool in Hawaii by numbers. And so this is straight from the Ready Keiki website. So the one thing I just want to bring to everybody's attention right here is that there are data that shows roughly that 20% of families choose to watch their children or have the ability to have somebody watch, so they don't necessarily need their child in a formal setting. And it's fine. It's just that in Act 46, it does not account for that 20%. So while we are working alongside the LG and we're up, this is as of September, where we need 405 seats. In Act 46, we also have to think about these other 6,000 roughly children and how we might also serve them as well. So this again was part of that Act 46. So what's charged to us is that by 2027, we will have space for 50% of the currently unserved children. And by 2032, 100%. So we're looking at universal access to early learning. And so as Dr. Terry Locke spoke earlier about workforce, we're looking at CTE pathways, apprenticeships, early childhood educator stipend program, articulation agreements, Hawaii Teacher Standards Board ATA field. We're looking at the new CCDF changes, preschool open doors funding, facilities contracts, public expansion of public and community-based pre-K. And then, of course, the implementation of the preschool development grant. And here are the big buckets of what we're working on here is to update the comprehensive needs assessment, do our strategic plan, looking at increasing parent and family engagement, workforce, quality improvement, which Dr. Terry Locke spoke about all of these things, and enhancing quality and expanding access. And so on the left is our current early childhood state plan, and it has 5 big building blocks in it. And on the right side is our strategic implementation plans. And so this is what Alohi mentioned that she's the program manager for. And so through our PDGB-5 grant, we are looking at a new comprehensive needs assessment so that we can update our state plan and also adjust the strategic implementation plans as needed. One of the other things that we're taking a look at is fiscal mapping. So EOEL and Early Childhood Action Strategy are leading an effort to do a comprehensive fiscal map from birth to 24. And so we're going to be taking a look at what are the current fiscal investments happening in Hawaii? How can we align these resources with our goals? To how are we going to coordinate these supports and services, maximize the funding, and look at other areas for efficiency. And so this is really exciting. It's going to be kind of a lot of work. It says that supposedly this platform, this digital map will be up by the end of the year. And so I'll keep you updated on that progress. And then not the last, but the other big bucket that we are working on is our attainment goal, that where EOEL is a part of it with the Hawaii Department of Education, the university system, and workforce development. And this goal 1, universal access to high quality early learning, is the portion that EOEL reports on. And so this definitely has a partnership with everybody that you see off on the right side, but basically we're monitoring 2 big metrics. What % of early care and education settings have a qualified and experienced educator? What is that retention of those educators, and where's the geographic breakdown? So some of that information is housed in the Department of Education. It's also housed in charter schools. It's also housed in Department of Defense spaces, and it's also housed in Department of Human Services. And then also the % of kindergarten students who exhibit readiness for kindergarten is evidenced by the kindergarten entry assessment with equity breakdown. And so these are the really big things that EOEL is currently working on. Let's see, stop share. Yep. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
Hi, Yuko. This is Joni. Thank you for that orientation, but I have a question. So EOEL is primarily working with just public pre-K schools or private as well?
So that's a really good question. So in terms of direct administration, we administrate the programmatic and professional development pieces in public schools. That does not mean that we cannot provide those same types of services. I mean, professional learning opportunities outside of the public schools. It just has not happened yet. But now we have Ian, and so we're going to be working on supporting just the whole broad sector with additional learning opportunities as well.
So you know that Act 46, does it pertain to private preschools as well? You know, for
Yeah.
open doors?
Yes, it does. And so all of those community-based pieces, whether it's the licensing, the workforce registry, the administration of preschool open doors, and the CCDF funds, all of those are housed in the Department of Human Services. So EOEL does not directly implement any of those things. We only work in partnership with the Department of Human Services.
So you know that the diagram that you had where the EOEL is only like 2 slices. So who does the rest?
So good question. So there's a lot of different people who do those other parts. And so that's where it's important to know EOEL's 2 parts, right? So one of them is the coordination of the whole fan and looking at the alignment of the fan, the access to families of that whole fan part. But in terms of direct administration, EOEL is this part. So also on the chart include, let me see if I can share it. Let me see. So let's start here. So this is charter schools right here. This right here is Department of all of these right here sit in the Department of Education. This is in the Department of Health. Head Start and Early Head Start, even though the state collaboration director sits in EOEL, they are a grantee alongside every other Head Start and Early Head Start grantee in Hawaii. So they don't necessarily have that kind of administrative oversight of these programs. Everybody reports up to Region 9. Then the Department of Defense comes under the Department of Defense. This is something I'm still working on, trying to understand the system. When you look at the multi-generational programs in terms of home visiting and FCILs, there are numerous partners, but as somebody had mentioned, we have Keikio Partners in Development, Department of Health also does home visiting, and there are many other partners who do this work. And then you have private partnership funded preschool classrooms on DOE campuses. So sometimes Kamehameha schools seed funds pre-K classrooms in public schools. And so that's where the private funding comes in here. And then when you look at these community-based programs, so all of these, I would say, are licensed through the Department of Human Services. And the reason why I say it's private, while they might receive some federal, they are typically either nonprofits or private operating preschools or individuals who are operating family childcare out of their homes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Yuko?
Yeah, this is Elaine. Hi, Yuko. You mentioned the Head Start collaboration. I know that Chris had retired. Have you guys hired someone yet?
So good question. So we had made an offer to somebody 2 rounds ago, and after some consideration, they eventually declined. And then we made another offer, and the person is looking at the package, which includes pay and other compensation. They tentatively accepted, but they're reviewing the package now.
Okay, mahalo.
So in the interim also, the Head Start collaboration director is also me. But it's also been kind of neat because I have not been that close to the federal realm yet. And so also getting to know about Head Start programs and collaborating with people nationwide, it's been really neat because Head Start sits in many different departments across the state. So I've been able to work with CCDF coordinators and Head Start folks and all kinds of other people because they sit differently in different states. So that's actually been really exciting. And I hope to stay closely connected to it as well.
Yuko, this is Stephanie. I'm curious, so you're coming in with a new board, there's Ready Keiki is moving forward. When you think of, you mentioned the state plan needs to be updated. So when you think about the biggest opportunities or things you're hoping to partner with the board on, or things that you're hopeful the board will want to prioritize, what would those things be?
I could just say one thing right now, because you mentioned, the state plan. One of the things that I found interesting when I stepped into this role is I asked, who does this? Am I responsible for the full implementation of the state plan and the strategic implementation plan? Is that EOEL's plan? Or, and generally the consensus from many different people is that the plan belongs to everybody. And so so that makes it a little bit difficult in terms of how much we, like, what is our interaction with it? And I think just the general oversight of it, you know, we kind of keep it moving along, but I know it takes many people to uplift it, but I know in some areas, in some areas of the strategic implementation plan, it's been a little difficult. Some have taken off. For example, Dr. Terry Locke's group was one of them, and they kind of took off and went going, but others have been a little bit more difficult. And so I think one of the things I would like the board to consider is what is the relationship of the board to the state, the early childhood state plan, the next one.
If I can jump in here, there is a statement which about the board's role, and it may be something that can be a basis for conversation further. That was designed when the state plan was put together, because it is a state plan that is for everyone, by virtue of the fact that it's signed off by all the departments who are members. And while EOEL has responsibility for certain parts of it, EOEL is also engaged with other departments who have their own plans. And so it's building in, how do you create a shared targeted goal structure that doesn't get caught in silos and systems. And that's something we've been working on, but we haven't conquered that issue yet. And authority for EOEL is very limited with regard to the state plan. It really is responsible only for those parts that relate for the public pre-K and the support it gives for other organizations. ELB likewise. So it's a conversation that we have had, and you will need to continue to have, in terms of how do you move that forward on a statewide basis, around and respect the fact that other departments have their own plans. It's a combination of two. Yuko, I hope it was okay. I stepped in on that.
No, I think that you're correct. Yeah, you're very correct.
Hi, Yuko. This is Lindsay. Thank you so much for the overview. It's amazing how many hats you have, and this is amazing work you've done. What is the difference between Head Start and public pre-K in terms of which families are targeted and which qualify? And is it like family preference, which way they choose to go, or how does that work out, since it's the same age range but different funding sources? And what's the difference in who goes where?
Yeah, so really great question. So Head Start is currently in Hawaii. Early Head Start is for they start with prenatal all the way to 3, and then almost 3, and then there's 3 to 5 for Head Start. And in Hawaii, Head Start is solely federally funded. It is not that way in all states. So Head Start targets families that are roughly around 100% of the federal poverty level. However, there is a portion in there where they can accept families that are above that threshold. For example, a child who might receive special education services in a general education setting, like they can also be in a Head Start regardless of family income threshold. So there are nuances to that, but Head Start also provides lots of wraparound support services for families, and home visiting and all kinds of other things as part of their program. So for EOEL public pre-K, we have priority categories, which are similar to Head Starts. Our priority category threshold goes up to 300%, but we can also accept higher than that. And so one of the things that I think the field of early childhood is always valued is family choice, whether they choose to send their family to a space or not, and which kind of space they want to choose to send their spaces to. And so it is family choice. One of the things that I'm just in very beginning conversations, because it's always been, I guess, presented to me that we are in competition. But I don't see it that way, because there are more than 15,000 children that are not attached to anything. So instead of looking at, I'm taking from here, what about all of these out here that are not connected yet? And I'll give you one example of that. Previously, EOEL had only found 11 children who were experiencing unstable housing. But we had a team member who was Stephanie and Mikako and Tara and some other folks who did a lot of outreach. And we ended up finding 44 children this year who were experiencing unstable housing. So they're definitely there. And I think that's one thing. So going back to preference, it is preference, but trying to figure out, since Head Start also sits in EOEL, how could we let families know about both at the same time? And then let them pick, rather than it being seen as some sort of competition. And so I think that that's something that we'll work on later on down the road. But I think I would tell families to apply for both. I think the one thing, though, is that Head Start has a funded enrollment numbers that they have to hit. And so they're going through some challenges right now because there is a notice of proposed rulemaking that's asking them to pay on par with public schools in whatever area their Head Start programs are in. So without additional funding, in DOE language, you have to sell positions to compensate in that way, to work with their same pot of money. So I think there's going to be some things that are going to be happening with Head Start after their notice of proposed rulemaking. But I think if we could get them fully enrolled, I think that would be a great start. But part of it is workforce issues. So we're still working on the workforce issue with them as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Yuka before we move on? See any Yuka, so thank you so much. That was really helpful to get an overview and a sense of what the office has been working on and the success it's had in the recent years, and the hopes it has for a bright future as it continues. The next item we had on the board orientation, and I realize is sitting here listening to an awful lot of information, so I'll try to move along quickly. The Early Learning Board has an assigned Deputy Attorney General. And unfortunately, our Deputy Attorney General had a family emergency today and is not able to be with us to share. But one thing I just wanted to point out is that the basic role of that Deputy Attorney General is to serve as legal advice for the board at any point when issues come up that we need some guidance about. The chair can submit a request to the deputy that's assigned to our Early Learning Board to get opinions and advice about how to proceed, which is extraordinarily helpful throughout this whole process. So know that that person exists, doesn't take an active part in meetings, which per se, but probably will most often sit in on them, but really is available to provide legal advice should we need it at some particular time. So since I've been around since 2006 and involved in this, I promise I will not take you through the history of that experience at the Early Learning Board, but I do want to go back to 2006 for a minute because the Act 259 Task Force really launched the beginning of the development of a comprehensive and sustainable early learning system. That's what it was charged to do. And that's what we see in the fruition of the office as you see it, and the maturation, if you will, for lack of a better term, of the Early Learning Board. Once Act 259 was completed and delivered to the legislative session its report, which looked at detailed costs for the establishment and the operations of an early learning system in Hawaii. And there was a bit of shock at the cost at that point. There was still wide interest, but the legislature created through a special session in 2008, the Early Learning Council. And the Early Learning Council's job was to develop and administer the early learning system to benefit all children 0 to 5 across the state. That proved to be an impossible task for a volunteer organization. And there was some funding for one staff member, but it basically was virtually impossible for a volunteer organization to be able to manage something and develop it along those lines, although pillars were established around which a system could be built that really are the foundation for some of the work that you see built into the Early Learning Board, the Executive Office, and the efforts it's making in its strategic priorities, things like family engagement and the health of well-being of families and children, things of that nature, were the pillars upon which much of this work was done. In 2010, the legislature amended the public school kindergarten entry age beginning in the year 2013 and 2014. And just before that, the legislature signed into law by Governor Abercrombie was Act 178, which actually established the Executive Office on Early Learning and outlines the requirements for the duties and its directors. And the EOEL then was charged with developing this comprehensive early learning system and developing an office around it to build it out. At that time, the Early Learning Council was changed to become an advisory board. And so the Early Learning Advisory Board that was constituency and stakeholder related was created. And I want to say it was a board of about 22, if I remember correctly, a fairly large board at that particular time. And then the Early Learning Board was actually instituted through Act 202 in 2017. And at that point, the scope of the Executive Office of Early Learning was broadened to include the Early Learning Program and early childhood development. And the Executive Office had been already established to develop the public pre-kindergarten program. A switch was made at that point to move from an advisory capacity to a governing board capacity. And one of the major reasons for doing that was to be able to have the authority to develop policy around systems development and early childhood throughout the state. A second reason was to help to ensure some continuity in the Executive Office on Early Learning Leadership so that there wasn't a change every time there was a major change in the governor's office at that point. So one of the responsibilities assigned to the governing board was both the appointment and the evaluation of the executive director of the Office on Early Learning. So that was a whole new phase when we became a governing board. And that gives you a little bit of a historical sense of what happened. The responsibilities of the office to build off their authority had to do with directing the office on how best to meet the developmental and educational needs of children from prenatal care to entry into kindergarten, providing recommendations to the office about improving the quality, availability, and coordination of early learning programs, and then promoting collaboration across the agencies and stakeholders serving young children. And that realization you see not only in the membership on the board and the continued membership of those state agencies in particular, but also in the establishment of the First State Plan in 2019, which was an attempt to get buy-in by all of the departments, which did happen, and a sign off. And we depend upon the coordination and the efforts of both EOEL and ELB to coordinate the work around implementing the state plan. but not monitoring the state plan in the sense of having oversight, since these individual departments have their own authority, and no other branch of the state government, no other department can have authority over another one. So point the Early Learning Board, along with the Executive Office on Early Learning, were attached administratively to the Department of Education, and that continues today to the new board that's been envisioned that reduces the size of the board, which was one of its overall objectives, and also changes the nature of representation on the board from constituency and stakeholder to much more of a geographical representation. So that gives you a quick and dirty, although the responsibilities have stayed essentially the same. So it became the job, really, of the Early Learning Board to create this board and make it all happen. So we began from scratch in actuality, devised a vision, a mission, and a vision. And the vision we created was creating a sustainable early learning system that partners with families to ensure that every child is healthy, valued, and successful in school and life. And that has remained the guiding vision of the work that we have done. So as we transition from advisory to governing board, we created the mission, the vision, guiding principles for both the board and the system. We also created conflict norms to define how the board would function should it find itself in conflict, some of which these things still exist and can be referenced by you all if you should choose to do them. We worked with the facilitator to do all of these things, determined some strategic priorities, and created an action plan. And out of this action plan, we took the statute's opportunity to create subcommittees and work groups, to create subcommittees to support the work of the action plan. And we hoped the development of the Executive Office on Early Learning. These subcommittees can include or do include those board members who serve particularly in the convening roles, and also off-board membership to provide additional expertise as deemed by the each of the subcommittees to support the work of the board. So it's a mixture of both on-board and off-board members. The subcommittees are not subject to the sunshine law the way the board is. And therefore we can have that membership. And we do have to ensure that there isn't more than a quorum of membership on each of those subcommittees in our conversations. And I'll tell you a little bit about each of those subcommittees in a minute, but the other organizational piece that came out of the statute had to do with the selection of a chair. And that was indicated in statute is that the majority of members of the board would elect a chair to continue the practice of the board. That was the limit on the parameters of that. So since then, the governance subcommittee has created the duties, an outline of the duties of a chair, as well as the selection process that you heard Matt share today. The governance committee also developed a plan that was approved by the board to create a vice chair, which the current chair thinks would be a wonderful idea for you to consider instituting. We bumped into COVID at that point. We also bumped into the need to select a new director because the previous director before Yuko determined to retire at that point. We had to develop processes for the selection, along with a variety of other tasks that were necessary to move forward. So the vice chair got put on hold, but I would suggest you go back and revisit that. The board needs a vice chair, particularly if it has a chair who is an aging chair. I think that would be a wise thing for you to consider. So that information is also available for you folks to take a look at. But as we looked at the work that was required of the board, we felt we needed two standing committees. One was the governance committee, and its task was to manage the board vacancies and nominations process, to do the annual executive director evaluation process, to track policies established by the board, and to define, prioritize, communicate, and evaluate policies and processes for ELB in order to accomplish the larger goal of building an early learning system with EOEL. This was one of the things that came out of the action plan. The policy effort has not reached fruition. It still needs to be done. Conversations have been had. The governance committee was beginning to work on them. Large global categories have been established, and there has been some collecting of information around policies, but that's a piece of work that probably needs to be enhanced and continued. The Finance Standing Committee really meets only periodically. It reviews and recommends approval by the full board of the annual budget of the EOEL. It reviews and recommends approval by the board of legislative funding requests, inclusive of EOEL operations and its capital improvement requests and any additional funding requests. And it reports to the board on ELB and EOL finances as requested by the board chair. One of the other committees established was, and we had three ad hoc committees. One was the Capacity and Resources Committee, and this committee was designed because of the emphasis on system building and the programmatic responsibilities of EOEL to develop a public pre-K, and not wanting to lose sight of the system building that's necessary as well. So its charge was to address EOEL's capacity and resource challenges to sustain a broad focus and impact beyond public pre-K and to meet its statutory mandate to adjust the full continuum of services and programs for families, children prenatal to kindergarten entry. Now, this was also, this committee was developed also at a time when the office's capacity had been diminished because positions that had been instituted were no longer funded. And so there was a need to restore. And as you heard, when Yuko described the office at the moment, the capacity has been well built. And this particular committee has helped the director to be able to secure those positions and make recommendations to the board to approve funding them. You may wish to look at whether or not its role continues to be essential for the work that's going on.
And what was it called again?
The Capacity and Resources Committees. Yeah. And it was really necessary when we first started. It also has been one of the committees that's helped to look at how do we measure the success of the state plan. And that responsibility has been shifted to another subcommittee, which I'll tell you about shortly in more detail, because that has been a very difficult thing to measure. Not only determining what data do we need, but what data can we use that might be public? What data do we acquire from other agencies? Because when you look at the state plan, it's very broad and impacts a variety of other agencies. And those conversations are continuing.
Not everyone wants to share that data.
I'm sorry.
It's not easy to get that data.
No, it's very hard. And some of it, is hard to interpret. And so that's been the other question. What's useful data? How do we interpret it? What does it tell us about the achievements of the measures we had indicated and included? With the upcoming review of the strategic plan and the statewide plan, I think you may find yourselves coming back around to that conversation as time goes on. Another committee that really came out of the work that Terry shared with you today was a Workforce Equity Committee, which is also an ad hoc committee. It followed up on the RAND study that Terry was doing, and knowing that workforce was going to be critical to the expansion of the public pre-K and the expansion of access. to the fulfillment of Act 46, there was need to really focus on this particular area. So that subcommittee has continued to do work and is one that we assume will continue in the future. But it's looking at all the issues around not only the power to the profession, but also the compensation issues, the benefits issues, the recruitment and retention issues, the career pathways that Terry was talking about today. We had one subcommittee called Systems Mapping and Relationship Building, which was an ad hoc committee that has been sunsetted already. And that's partially because of one of the things Yuko was talking today about, that her work with ECAS, which is the Early Childhood Action Strategies, which was attached to EOEL and the Governance Office for a while when it first began, but has now moved to become its own organization. The work that they are doing on systems mapping will provide that information. So there was no need to continue this particular group subcommittee. And then the final one that we have is called the Strategic Implementation Subcommittee. And this is one that's grown out of the work that we have been doing most recently to coordinate the state's early childhood development system, but also to really be able to flesh out the early childhood state plan and to fulfill the obligation of the Early Learning Board from the strategic implementation work that Alohi was talking about earlier. This group is looking at how does the state plan become implemented and how does Act 46 become implemented. It was responsible for the roadmap that was referenced today that looked at all of the expansion to meet the goals of Act 46 and its various elements. And it also is working with Alohi and her group to help to define the progress made on the state plan and to enhance the implementation plans that have been worked out. So the board has really been supporting in its subcommittees the work of EOEL and its strategic priorities, which seems a logical area of work for it to take on, and also looking at this as a cooperative effort between EOEL and also holding EOEL accountable for the work that it achieved.
What was the name of that ad hoc committee?
The strategic implementation. I know it's kind of a, we don't like the name, but it is what it is. And it's the subcommittee, strategic implementation subcommittee. Each of these committees has a convener who brings the committees together. We don't have a chair per se, but certainly that structure could be redefined. It will be up to this new board, you folks as a new board, to determine are these committees still the kind of thing that you wish to continue with, or perhaps take a look at their viability in the future. And given the time that we're at right now, I'm going to jump to what we have on the website, unless somebody has a burning question, because it will elaborate on some of these things and give you places to secure, I hope, some of the questions. Kevin is going to help me out here because you don't want me trying to do this. But Kevin, if you can, okay. Call up the website information. You have access to all this information. I'm going to look at three pieces. The first is those overarching documents that I referenced in the beginning that have been developed by the Early Learning Board once it became a governing board. Can we go to the, is that one going to take us there, Kevin? Okay.
It's the one you shared with us, Sam.
Yeah, it's the one we shared with you. Okay. This is the second one. I think if you go to the first folder, that'll take you there. Yeah. These are the documents that I was referencing. If you can slide it up a little bit, Kevin. These are all the overarching documents that we have put together over time. So the number one document is the mission and vision. The second document is not one that you probably, that's the context of the previous board. Document number 3, you may wish to take a look at. You can look at the legislative history from 1989 to almost the present, that Representative Roy Takumi, and he's just recently been appointed chair of the Board of Education, put together to give us an overview of how things looked. The guiding principles are item number 4. We had a legislative advocacy policy, which we did not totally follow, but it gave us a way of approaching it. Because so much happened so quickly during the legislature, we set up a practice and policy whereby we created priorities that the board approved of, that were generally built around the strategic plan and outcomes, that would guide the kind of bills we would support. And then when new bills came up, if it was in between board meetings, we had a filter for saying, this is when we can take action on, or this is when we cannot take action on. So you may wish to take a look at that. The conflict policies are there. The strategic action plan is there. That's the very first one, just to give you some historical context. That you may wish to see. The subcommittees are listed below as well, along with the early learning state plan responsibilities, the director's responsibilities, and the evaluation cycle that we put into practice, a graphic to show the procedures, which we have variously followed because of factors that have interfered with us, that happening. All right, Kevin, can you go to the other document, if you would, please? Yeah. Mhm. Oh, no, I'm sorry. If you go to the one that has all the committees. That the very first one?
This one.
Yeah, it may be that. Top to the, and hit the one that says early learning board, not the one, but that may do it. I'm not sure. The top is a document? No.
On it.
Over to the very top left, above where it says type people modified, it says early learning board.
Above.
Above, keep going. Up one more. Yeah, try that. Yeah, that's what I, thank you.
Well,
Okay, each of these is what the governance subcommittee put together to help you get information about the subcommittees. However, I must admit there are 2 subcommittees that have not uploaded all their information, so we need to check on that with Matt. But for example, if you look at the governance one, you will see the standards in there of the evaluation for the director, the EOEL director evaluation, which the governance committee designed. You will also see some transitional information in here with regard to how the governance committee is functioning. So at some point, you will want to tap into these documents for that kind of information as well. Each of those committee files should give you that information, except for finance and the workforce equity. The files for some reason haven't been uploaded. So I will look into that and add that information. Subcommittee notes should be in here. And I don't think they'll go back 5 years, but they will give you at least some up-to-date ones, but the transition sheets, which should be here, and I haven't checked all of those, but will give you the kind of information we felt was essential for an overview of what the priorities the committee thought should be looked at and continued, along with connections to outside members and organizations that they tapped into, since we're talking about a network here. That's pretty broad. Okay, Kevin, if we can do a quick and dirty look at the website one. Now, two things here. And then I'll finally stop. No, I have one more thing to say. Yeah. Okay, if you go to the website in the Early Learning Board and scroll down, yeah, to this chart in the middle, ignore the ELB group charter. That's the Early Learning Advisory Board charter. I'm not sure why that's still there. The purpose is there, which you already know about. Public agency meetings and records are included. ELB agendas historically are there. ELB meeting materials, which are the board materials that were sent out with each meeting attached for information preparation, similar to the minutes. The minutes themselves are there. Meetings recordings are there. Any reports we wrote. So the reports that we submitted for the roadmap should be there as well. And then I wanted to highlight what's in this ethics one. Is one of the things, requirements for all board members, and it is a responsibility. You scroll down just a little bit, Kevin, thank you, is that all board members have to go through some ethics training. And the information under the training is one, Kevin, can you open that one, please?
First one.
The training one. Yeah, thanks. You need to take a look at this, and it will describe what kind of training we need to have. The Early Learning Board is able to do one of the scheduled trainings, if you choose to do that, which is about a 90-minute training, I understand, online. Or you can do strictly the online one on your own, which is self-guided and self-directed, which is about a 30-minute one. This needs to be done as soon as you can to give you a broad overview of the responsibilities and the ethics responsibilities. And there is an assessment at the end. You do receive a certificate that indicates that if you have completed it, and it's good for 4 years.
So you just need to be trained once every 4 years.
Just once every 4 years.
You know, if you're on another state board, that training, I would assume so, it's the same training.
It's probably, yeah, I assume it's the same training. So if you've done it within the past 4 years and have the certificate, it would say the same thing. But you can check with the commission just to be sure. I don't know for certain, but I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. This training is really important to really begin to understand things that you're able to do and things that you're not able to do, whom you're able to speak with, when and under what circumstances, because we are a public board, and what some of the requirements are. So it's particularly important to do, I think, as soon as you can. The other requirement that you have to meet is financial disclosure. Has to be completed, and that you can also find online. I think it's probably, is it under file your forms, Kevin? I'm not positive.
Is it for the training?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I can send you information about it because I have some separate information. No, I don't think it is, so. But that, all public members have to complete a financial disclosure, which is not a public document, by the way. And that is obviously to address issues, particularly around conflict of interest possibilities, for the future. So that's another piece of information that will have to be completed at some point.
And that's due by the end of May.
Well, theoretically, it would be good to have it done by the end of May. It's certainly, your term has begun, so yes, in theory, you are now board members. So completing it by the end of May is when the objective would be. Most years, it has to be done by the end of May of that particular calendar year. It's just wise to do it at the beginning of the year and get it out of the way if you can. So that the office doesn't have to keep nagging us to get it done. And it is an official requirement to retain your seat on the board, so. Something.
This may be a dumb question, but are we filing for 2023 or 2024? Because it auto-populates at 2024, but it feels like we should be filing for 2023. Is it like taxes or is it just where are you at right now?
I think it's where, I don't know,
I'm
you
sorry.
should answer.
No, I couldn't hear it clearly, so please go ahead.
I think it's where you're at right now, like your current income.
Yeah.
Your spouse's current income, not last year's. It doesn't ask like what was your previous year's income. So I've always done it on the current income year.
Yeah, and that's the way I have done it as well. It doesn't ask for an awful lot of financial information, as I recall.
And then there's a range.
Yeah. Once you look at it, if you have any questions about the form, you can check with Yuko and or me, and we'll see if we can help you to answer them, or at least direct you to someone who can. And when you look at the document directions, that would be helpful too, to fill in the gaps. I did mine too long ago this year, so I don't recall all the pieces.
So, Bob, is that the financial disclosure that's an annual
Yes,
filing?
Yeah, it's an annual one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you've been very patient, and I want to be mindful that we have 3 minutes left to kind of close out this meeting. And one of the things we have done at the end of all of our meetings is to share outcomes, and the outcomes that we have in the meetings usually are items we've taken action on. Whether that's something you choose to continue or not, obviously is up to you. The single action item we've taken in this meeting is the approval of the minutes from April. But the other outcome that's probably a critical one is for you to remember that the chair nominations timeline begins at the close of today's meeting, runs until May 24th at 4:30 in the afternoon. Any voting member may nominate someone else, and any voting member may nominate himself or herself. If someone is nominated by another member, Matt, as the convener of the governance subcommittee, will ensure that that person is willing to be considered before the vote is taken at the next meeting. Okay. So with that, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned unless there's some driving burning issue that somebody has. We have 1 minute. Okay, seeing none. Thank you all for enduring what you have to listen to today. Our June meeting will have a little bit more orientation, but not a great deal more. It will be more of the business along with the deferred items today. We welcome you. We're excited to see all of you as new board members. You will enjoy working with the EOEL staff, I'm sure. And we want to wish you well as you embark on probably the most important work our state does. And that's helping our young children and their families have successful lives and futures. And that in itself makes it worthwhile. And they are both the primary infrastructure resource of our community and state. So mahalo to all of you and ahui ho.